Hello, this is an Embarcadero Delphi Integrated Development Environment tutorial. Let's install and see how to use it. This is the wiki page. This is the product homepage, embarcadero.com/products/Delphi. We go to the very end of the page, and in here we get to Delphi CE, Delphi Community Edition. Get Community Edition free. There's a form that I need to fill, and there will be a download. I have created a online account, and now I'm downloading the installer. It's version 12.1, which is not the latest version of Embarcadero Delphi. The current version is version 13, Florence. So the Community Edition is a number of versions behind the newest stable released version of Embarcadero Delphi. I am using Total Commander as file manager. I am elevated as administrator. I have downloaded Delphi CE 12.1 in the default download location, which is my users, home directory, and then downloads directory. Let's open the executable or the installer of Delphi Community Edition 12.1. English. I agree. Next. I'll need a serial product number. After I have created the online account, I went back to the download page for Delphi Community Edition. I have selected to download. I have received an email with a license key, a product serial number. I'm providing the serial number from the email. So the installer is pretty small, 176 megabytes in size. I'm not sure if this is a full offline installer or it will download some of the additional features from the internet. It totally seems extremely small for a fully featured integrated development environment with code editing, debugger, etc. Okay, so we want Delphi Community Edition. That's the Delphi programming language without C++, Windows. Just English. T-chart, D-unit, IBX, interbase. This seems okay. 900 additional megabytes will be downloaded. It now will install the Windows SDK or Windows 10. EULA. Probably some of these options can be checked out, but I'm not exactly sure what. We now have two installers running. There's the Delphi installer and the Microsoft Windows Software Development Kit installer. This seems like a bug. The final Windows SDK installer wizard says welcome instead of saying Done. We're finished. Okay, the Delphi Community Edition 12.1 installer says that the installation was successful. Let's see if the application appears in the Windows Start menu. It's under the letter D, Delphi 12, and under the letter E, Embarcadero RAD Studio 12. And this is the first run wizard of the integrated development environment. Let's see what it asks. Let's switch to dark. Console as 10. Next. So I kept the defaults. I don't use version control. I know how to use version control outside integrated development environments using the Git GUI executable. That's part of the Git project. Convert files with known extensions to CRLF. Maybe if there's mixed line endings. Okay, and we're on. So the integrated development environment Delphi Community Edition has been installed. You can always restart it from the Windows Start menu, either Delphi 12 or Embarcadero RAD Studio and then Delphi 12. This is the welcome page. Let's start with the simplest Windows graphical user interface application possible. That's probably this one. Windows VCL application Delphi. Let's go through the file main menu. New. Windows VCL application. We'll need to save. Let's create a directory in here. File. Save project as. How do we do that? It tries to save the path file, not the project or the solution. Let's see how the structure looks like on the disk. So I provided a directory, and inside there's the entry file, the entry point, which is project group 1.groupproj. So this is similar to an SLN file for Visual Studio. It uses MS Build, similar to Visual Studio. The SLN files from Visual Studio are not actually an XML, so they don't actually use MS Build syntax. But the Borel Delphi ones do use the MS Build XML file format. Then there's a dproj file. So the group proj says that there's a project1.dproj, which is this thing. So this is the second file in importance. This is the first one, the group proj. The second one is the dproj. Okay, this one is similar to a CS proj in Visual Studio C# projects. So it's also using the MS Build XML format. which is similar to the Java ent format. In here are the configurations. There's Win32, Win64, debug, a release, and then it says about the DPR file. Let's go to the third file in importance, which is the DPR file. The DPR file is actually object Delphi source code, so files with Pascal content, object Pascal, programming language. So it's a program with a begin and an end. Let's see how we apply the language indentation, highlighting sources, and we need Pascal. Okay. If you have ever used the Turbo Pascal integrated development environment for Microsoft DOS, that was the best toolchain for creating Windows, to creating DOS applications in the beginning of the 1900 years, then you're probably very familiar with everything that's happening here. You know the syntax of the programming language, you know how to create a main program, you know the what is possible to do inside of a free function, you know the difference between functions and procedures. So you're right at home in Delphi. Delphi was released starting from the year 1995. It's a natural successor to Turbo Pascal. It's the same programming language from the same software manufacturer, software vendor, but this one is intended for Windows 32-bit, starting from Windows 95. Whereas Turbo Pascal was made for the newest version at the moment, MS-DOS operating system. And from there on, there's just Object Pascal files, so files with extension PAS, files with extension DFM. This is the form editor, has serialized what's visible on the form editor to files with extension DFM, which is Delphi form. And then these are build artifacts, the .local files. Okay, let's first, before doing anything, let's put this project under version control. So I'm installing Git for Windows, git-scm.com, download for Windows. I'm going to use the Windows 64-bit portable edition. Let's move it to the C:\10\bin directory. It will install in the correct place, which is C:\10\bin/portable git directory. So that was a portable archive. It's not actually a Windows installer. It uses the extension .exe, but in fact it's just a 7-zip archive with a self-extractor. So the only thing that running the .7zip.exe file for portable Git did was to extract the content to this directory portable Git. It's the exact same thing as if you would go right click on the portable Git executable file and then 7-zip and then extract. So we have a Git in here. Let's use the Git CMD. And we're going to do some of the actions at the command line, the most complicated ones, and the rest using Git GUI. First of all, we want to initialize a Git project, so git init dot meaning the current directory. The default branch is named master, which is okay. Next up, we want to find a .gitignore for Delphi. There's this GitHub repository, github.com/github/gitignore, with possible .gitignore files for various integrated development environments, toolkits, toolchains, etc. We have one for Delphi. These files get maintained and are pretty up to date. As new versions of Delphi get released, this file delphi.gitignore will probably get updated to reflect the novelties in the new versions of Embarcadero Delphi. Save page as, Control V. Let's rename it, Shift F6. The name of the file should be .gitignore. Let's see how it looks like. Very, very short, which is not expected. So it ignores the files that are being created after you do a git clone and you open the top level group proj in Embarcadero Delphi Integrated Development Environment, which are the two .local files. They're ignored in here. Then there's the support for history that's built into the integrated development environment. This is, I know, for emergency cases when you work without version control. This is the __ history directory. And then there's build artifacts, files that are being generated when you build your Delphi project. Executables, DLLs, ActiveX files, etc. So this looks okay. The next step would be to configure the project such that different users using different settings for the end-of-line terminators in Git will not affect and will use the project in the exact same way. So that's done by creating a file named git attributes. So this is how we want it. We want multiple users to use the project in the exact same way. Does not matter if they have Git installed as a portable version, if they have Git installed using the official installer from the Git project, if it comes bundled with their integrated development environment. Does not matter how they configure Git per user, per computer, per directory, whatever. The only thing that matters is that Git should not do, in my opinion, any end-of-line operations for nobody. And you do that by creating a .git attributes file and specify that none of the files are text. Like this. So that means all files are not text. Because if a file is text, then if you have automatic end-of-line modification enabled in your Git configuration, then if a colleague of yours is not working on Windows, maybe the Delphi project needs to be edited temporarily from a Docker container or something like that, Git might replace some Windows end-of-line characters, which are \r\n, so the character 13, character 10 with just \n. And we don't want to do that. We just state upfront what we want. That's it. It's time to do our first Git commit. Git GUI. The initial commit message title is always the same. Initial commit. So let's look at the files one by one. Entry point file, the first file in importance, group proj, says about dproj. Dproj says about .dpr. dpr says about unit1.pass. unit1.pass will need its own DFM. So the file with the same name and extension DFM. And then we've added a .gitignore file by default, just to ignore the files that Delphi creates automatically. In my opinion, Delphi should not create files automatically. The Git clone should be kept extremely clean. All of the files that are created by Delphi should be created in a hidden subdirectory in the top level. So should be a, I don't know, a .rad hidden directory or something. And all of the configuration files, build artifacts, intermediate files, everything should be in there. The exterior of that directory should be perfectly clean. And the git ignore should contain just one line. Ignore that directory. Commit. It says that it doesn't know who I am, so let's satisfy this thing. Git config global user dot email. Git config global user email. Username. Let's try to commit again. And now we can look at the history. From the Git GUI main menu, repository, and then visualize all branch history. So there's just one branch named master, just one git commit, and it's the initial one. Okay, let's see what additionals steps we will take inside the integrated development environment. Let's start by renaming the project. Let's create, I don't know, a simple text editor. Let's rename the project group if possible. Let's rename the dproj and dpr files. Let's rename the main unit, the main form. Let's see how we actually name these things, because in Delphi we had all of these restrictions where Delphi is case insensitive, so you cannot have identifiers that differ just in the casing. So, and you also used prefixes like U for units, F for forms, FRM, etc. So I'm not sure if it's possible to name the file in the exact same way as you name the default, the main class that's contained inside the file. So let's see how that works. Main form. Let's save everything. In the main toolbar, save all. Let's look at the Git changes. Says that the group rosh has disappeared. And now there's a new one, simple edit.group rosh, correct. The deep rosh has disappeared. There's a new one. The dpr has disappeared. Let's look at the changes inside the dpr. So main form.pas, the file name, and then main form. Okay, the rest of the files did not change content, just the inside the PAS was no code change, just the name of the file has been changed. So that's simple edit. And this is the one of the most important features in the Delphi integrated development environment. This is the graphical forms editor. If you double click on a file that contains a form, you can switch between form, designer, there's this design tab, and the code, source code, the Object Pascal source code. Let's go to the design. Let's go to the properties of the form. So I'm selecting it, and then inside Object Inspector, let's see if we can move the tool windows around. I don't like these many tool windows visible by default, all at the same time. I actually want just one. Multi-device preview, I do not want such a thing, so hide the tool window. The projects should be the first view, the first tab in the tool window. Data Explorer not needed right now. I'm going to close it. Structure is a good one to have around. The properties is a good one to have around. I'm not using modeling. I'm not sure what modeling might mean. And then the possible controls, visual controls. And not only. I like these changes. So I want to save the settings for the default layout non-debug view. Let's see how that is being done. So there's a debug layout, a default layout. What are these buttons? Save current desktop as default layout. Okay. Replace it? Yes. I'm not sure why this button doesn't display a tooltip, but I just remembered that this button is related with the layouts. So layout means I'm going to change how the various tool windows inside the integrated development environment are positioned. Maybe I want them tabbed, maybe I want them floating in MDI style. I'm positioning them where I want, and then I'm going to save as either the default layout or as a new layout. But I usually just have one default layout. The debug layout, when you start the debugger, will be probably different. We'll see when we get there. Okay, so we select the form and then go to the properties, which is called Object Inspector Tool window. Let's try to rename the form. So that's the name property. Okay, it complains that you cannot have two main forms, and this is because, where are you? There's already a symbol for main form, but it's a unit. So something similar to maybe a namespace. Which means that the main class inside the .pas file will need to have a different name from the unit name. How did we do that? Probably using the prefix uppercase U for all of the units. So let's try to do that. Right click, rename, U main form. And now back to the designer, properties. And now it did work. Okay, so inside a file, there's always a main class. If it's a thread, if it's a form, if it's a frame, we try to use as many objects as possible, as many classes as possible. And then we're going to have main form. So the name of the main object of the main class that's defined inside this .pas file be what we want, so main form, and then with the prefix uppercase T, the class, T from type, and then with uppercase U, the name of the file. So U, T, and then just the name, the desired name for the variable. Okay, we saved. A good time to do another git commit. Main form.pas became umainform.pas, and the project files, the dpr and the dproj, have been changed accordingly. So uppercase U prefix for the name of the .pas file. Use prefixes and T prefix for class name. This is the custom in Delphi. Types will usually have the prefix uppercase T, and then interfaces will probably have the prefix uppercase I. I like this capitalization for keywords, so all lowercase. Let's look a bit at the main toolbar. It's too crowded for my taste because I usually use just half of the screen, so I want to see the buttons that are somehow useful inside the main toolbar. So let's do that. How do we do that? So let's look at the main toolbar. These are the toolbars that are visible as part of the main toolbar. There's standard, debug, custom, platform, device, selection, browser, and view. This is a toolbar, so it starts from these 4 buttons, 5 circles button icon. This is one toolbar which is empty. Let's immediately remove it. Right click and uncheck custom. Then we have a toolbar in here with 4 buttons that I have never used in my whole life. The view unit, view form, and toggle form unit. Hide non-visual components. And that's the view toolbar. Let's see what else is here. Platform device selection, this I actually use, but maybe not in Delphi. In Visual Studio I certainly do use it. Let's see what are these. Remove from project, add file from project. How do I edit a toolbar? Yeah, so I found a way to do it. The not needed buttons in toolbars, I'm just going to drag them into this window. So right click on the main toolbar, customize, and then inside the commands, list view. So I have this add file to project. No need for this. Open project. Nope. Save all, yes. Save, nope. Open, no. New item, no. Okay, what are these? Run without debugging, run, pause, trace, step over. The debugger toolbar should not be shown if I did not start the debugger yet. Let's see if we need to switch the layouts. If the default layout has been changed, if the content of the main toolbar is part of a layout. Let's switch to debug layout. And it switched everything except the main toolbar. So that's why the debug toolbar is visible by default, because the debug is not part, the main toolbar's layout is not part of the actual layouts. Okay, let's see how we can move everything to have less empty space. I did not actually need to save anything because I only changed the main toolbar, and that's not saved as part of the layouts. Okay, so I like what I see right now. What doesn't look okay to me is the fact that there exists a horizontal left-right scroll bar. Let's see if we can remove that. That's usually done inside the Integrated Development Environment text editor. You select word wrap. So a search on the internet says that Delphi Integrated Development Environment's text editor just doesn't have any way of wrapping lines, which is the way it has always been, but it's certainly not modern to not be able to display a line of text on multiple lines if there's not enough width in the text editor's window. So that's missing a very important feature. Okay, so let's continue working. We want a text editor. So let's make this into a text editor. Object inspector, we want the name of the main window. How do we do that? There's no .text property. The property that we're looking for is called caption. So this should be simple edit. We'll want a main menu, and we'll want a multi-line text editor. Let's see how that is done. Palette, the main menu, double click on it, right click on the main menu control. So this is a non-visible control. Has an editor, so right click on it, menu designer. We want the usual suspects in a text editor. So that's file. There's exit. Help. And about. Okay, now that we have a main menu, let's run the application for the first time and see how it looks like. So run without debugging, either from the Delphi Integrated Development Environment main menu, Ctrl-Shift-F9, or from the main toolbar, the debugger toolbar, run without debugging. So the application looks like we expected. It has the same size, height, width as the one shown in the editor, almost. Has the correct window title, the correct application title, the not expected application and window icon. Has a main menu. Doesn't show accelerators. You need to press the Alt key to show and hide the accelerators. F10 opens the menu. Alt opens the menu. The accelerators work. Alt H, Alt A, Alt H, and then A. Let's implement first the file exit, for instance. How do we do that? Okay, so it's called file to the menu item. Let's rename it to something better. How can we do that? Properties, name, file exit, menu item. It has the correct caption. This is how you specify accelerators with the ampersand key, with the ampersand character, so and character, before the accelerated character. So we wanted X to be accelerated, so have this underscore. So we put an ampersand before X. And now we want event. The event is probably on click. So this is code behind. This is implementing a procedure, which is a class member, a method, where you specify the actions that should happen when you click on this menu item, file exit. The tab key increases, the tab will insert two space characters, which is maybe okay, maybe not. The tab key should not put tabs but spaces, so that's a good option. But it should either insert 4 spaces or 2 spaces. So it seems that 2 spaces is the default. Let's confirm that thing. Tools, options, and tab. Editor. Tabs. Not these ones. For the Delphi programming language, the tab inserts 2 spaces. And it doesn't use the tab character. It's okay. Let's see how we can increase the size of the font. Control scroll doesn't seem to work. Control plus doesn't work. Control Shift plus. I don't see any main menu item related to font size in the current text editor. I don't see any way of zooming, of restoring the default zoom size. I don't see anything similar to the Visual Studio Code show all commands. So it's probably that you need to configure the integrated development environment. So tools, options, editor. Let's see, font. User interface. User interface. Customize IDE font. IDE font size. Okay, so it was right here. Checkbox, customize IDE font. We keep the defaults. this is the font for what? So we changed the fonts of the integrated development environment, so everything except the body of the text editor. Editor language, use editor font. Editor display. So it's console as, let's make it 12. And this is what we wanted. Okay, so in the old times, that was what you did. In order to change the display size of the source code, you actually wanted to go to the settings of the integrated development environment. But then nowadays, similar to web browsers, you can change the size of the main font inside the editor easily using Control mouse wheel scroll or Control plus, and then reset to the default zoom level with Control 0 on Windows. Okay, back to where we were. The design, file, menu, editor, object inspector, events, on click, and let's try to exit the application. Let's see which method do we actually need to call here. Application.terminate, this guy. Let's see if it works. File, exit, and it does work. Okay, you noticed that terminate is a procedure, not a function in Pascal, Turbo Pascal, Object Pascal, Delphi. There's this distinction between functions and procedures. A procedure doesn't return anything, a function returns something. So isClass is a function returns bool. Terminate is a procedure because it doesn't return anything. Sub programs was the term we used to encompass both functions and procedures. So sub-algorithms, yeah, I think. Okay, and it's not mandatory to use a pair of empty parentheses when you call procedures, which I don't like. I want the empty parentheses to be mandatory, but I cannot change this, so I always put them and I fix code when I see it with missing pair of parentheses. Okay, so we have one action. We could actually do a git commit. Let's see why so much changed. So the group proj was not saved previously. That's because the integrated development environment doesn't have the habit of saving everything and building and then running. Traditionally, it was like this because Delphi has a view of the source code, and then what's stored on the disk is something different. What's important for Delphi is how Delphi knows the source code to be. That's what is being displayed in the individual editor tabs. That's what's being used when building and running. But then you might not use the file save button or the file save as button ever. You could create a new project and work for a day, for 24 hours and never save, and you would be okay. But when you close the integrated development environment, it will ask that you save your work. And it also has nowadays that backup mechanism with a hidden underscore history directory, which is available in here, in the tab history in any text editor tab. So I do not like this. Whenever I want to run, I also want to save all files. Otherwise, we get into a situation like this where I have renamed all of the top level files. I have run the application and the solution file still has not changed, the group proj file. Here we now have a new file, simple edit.res, which I don't remember what it was, but it's probably something that we don't want to include. So it's a version info block. For the executable, it's totally a built artifact and should be git ignored. It doesn't say anything about res files. Resource files are binaries containing manifest, project icon, and version info. They cannot be viewed as text. Of course. So the source code file for Delphi resources is files with .rc extension, and there's an executable that will convert the RC files with extension RC into files with extension RES. If you don't use that command line tool executable, there's always this directive $R for resources, and then you say the name of the files that should be the name of the source code files that should be used as input to the resource build executable command line tool to generate .res file. Okay, now the res file is ignored. We have edited the .gitignore file. We have uncommented the line *.res. We have added a main menu and a menu item, but we did not save the menu item. We saved the file exit menu item, but we did not yet rename the help about menu item. Okay, now our form has more objects. So this is a class, and these are data members. In order for you to programmatically be able to access, read, and write properties of the menu items and the main menu. And then we have the implementation of the event menu item click for the file exit menu item as a procedure. everything looks okay. So that's this thing. Let's look at the history. Initial commit, and then additional changes. We rename some files. We could not use the same name for all three things, for the source code file, for the main class inside the file, and for the object instance of that class. And then we have implemented the application.terminate as the body of the event, of the implementation of the event menu item click for the main menu item file exit. Okay, let's continue. We renew main form, design. Let's implement help about. I remember there used to be a way to expand the menu items and then edit that without always going to the main menu designer. Okay, let's fix first the name. So this should be a menu item suffix, and the prefix is help about. Events, event implementation on click. This should be a message box. We have multiple ways of showing message boxes in Delphi. There's the show message procedure. Let's see how we do single. Okay, so this is the syntax for verbatim string literals with single quotes, not with double quotes. The C-like programming languages, JavaScript, C#, Java, etc., C++, will use double quotes for enclosing strings, whereas Turbo Pascal, Object Pascal, Delphi uses single quotes. Let's run. Help about. So the message box is correct in the sense that it has the correct body. Not yet, let's fix the body first. So v dot. The text of the body is okay. The button okay looks okay. But then there's these bugs where the title of the message box is wrong. It should be, the last E should be uppercase. So this is the correct name of the message box. Should be the exact name of the application. And then it's okay that the message box is modal, so you cannot do anything in the parent window until you dismiss the message box. But then the message box starts at the center of the screen instead of starting at the center of the application. So that's a bug. Let's fix those. Show message has 1 overload. Task DLG flags. What are these? Progress bar, minimize. Wow. I have never used that overload. Let's use the Windows API, Win32 API. So that's message box. Let's see if Windows is automatically included. It is. So the Pascal unit from Delphi, that's the wrapper over most of the exposed functions from the Windows API. Which is probably a very, very large file. 44,000 source code lines. Okay, so we want message box. Let's see if we can have the documentation side by side. Nope, no can do. I'm not sure how to split. That's very ugly. So the fact that I cannot extract the tab win api.windows and make it use half of the screen is really bad. The fact that I cannot move the tab and keep it inside the Delphi ID but still use just half of the screen and have both forms visible at the same time, that's totally not okay. It seems that they have added this feature in exactly the version that we're using, which is Delphi 12.1. Something extremely useful, split editor views. Open both side by side. Exactly. Let's see how we do that. So right click on the tab of the editor, go split and then right. Okay. Hopefully now it works. Yes. So message box is just a wrapper over message box W, the Unicode version of the message box Win32 API. This line is extremely similar to a pinvoke C# define, but then it doesn't actually specify anything but the name of the DLL that exports the function and the name of the exported function. The parameters and the return type, I'm not sure where they come from. Maybe they're stored in some file that ships with Delphi. Maybe they're computed on the fly, extracted from the user32 DLL with some form of DLL reflection, which I wouldn't know what that is. I'm not sure that you can extract. So from a Windows DLL you can extract the names of all of the exported symbols, but I'm not sure you can extract the signature from a DLL, because this message box W was exported from user32.dll as a C programming language style function export. So there's metadata somewhere inside Delphi. We can look at the signature if we hover on top of the symbol, or we could have installed the Delphi help when we installed Delphi. But we selected the default option, which is to not install the help. RAD Studio help is not installed when I press F1 after I select the symbol message box. So let's look at the documentation hover. So it says HWND, that's the H window of the parent window. So that's self. Self.handle. So self is similar to this identifier in C-like programming languages. So it's the current instance of the object if you're inside a method. So this is a function of an object, a method, procedure actually. So we have access to the current instance of the project, of the object. That's usually done by sending a hidden parameter through all of the methods, which is named self. We do this because we want the modal dialog to be actually modal. If we specify 0 in here, then the message box will be modal to I don't know what, but not the desired parent window. Okay, then we have actual strings, one for the text, one for the capture. This is the text, so the body. The caption is the title. The title should be the exact name of the application with full branding. And then we want a this type uType parameter. So the last parameter of message box, the Win32 API function, is actually a flags enum int uint type. So we want mbok, which is actually 0. And we would also want application model, if that's possible. But I'm not sure how to use that. Let's run it. Help about. It's still centered on the entire screen, but now it has the correct title, and it also has the correct width. I can close the modal dialog with pressing the OK button with the mouse, or pressing Enter, which will trigger the default button, which is just OK. If you press the tab key, there's just one control that you can navigate through using the tab key, just one tab order, which is the close button, the OK. You can close by pressing the space key, which will also exercise the current button. Pressing Enter will probably call the default button of the modal dialog. You can press the escape key, and because it's a window, you can go Alt F4. And you can right click on the window title bar and go close. Next up, Let's do the icon of the application. I have searched for IcoFX, IcoFX Portable, version 1.6.4 from portableapps.com. Download. Let's put it straight into c:/10/bin. What did we just do? Okay, so it finished downloading. IcoFX Portable exe. English, next. I agree. Install. Finish. c:/10/bin /IcoFX Portable. IcoFX Portable.exe. Show tips at startup, uncheck the checkbox, close. File, new. True colors 32-bit. Add a new image to your icon. File, new. Where is my icon? Up icon. I have searched on the internet text editor icon. I got to this PNG, the first result. Looks like this. Let's try to open it. File, open, Ctrl V. And from the main menu, icon, create windows, icon from image. Too many options, way too many options. Let's keep just 32-bit. Yeah, like this. Okay, so we have a 32-bit, which means RGB plus alpha. 16 by 16 pixels, 32 by 32 pixels, 48 by 48 pixels, and 256 by 256 pixels. Okay, looks kind of okayish. So there's the up icon. It is not transparent. So we need to work at this, at make edit transparency. How do we do that? So I have selected the foreground color as transparency. I'm using the bucket fill, and I'm clicking at least in all of the four corners of the icons. So all of the 4 pixels in the top left corner, top right corner, bottom right corner, bottom left corner should be transparent. This I'm not sure it's transparent, but I'm going to guess it is because I clicked many times. Okay, save again. Let's look again at the icon. It still doesn't look okay. Okay, that's enough time used for creating the icon. The icon should be created the way it should be created. So using IcoFX, an earlier version, not the latest version. Do all of the pixels correctly, manually. For instance, this icon 256 pixels is not okay because you should have a larger resolution of your image and then use that for generating the 256 pixel item inside the icon file. Okay, to the text editor, to the editor. So we want to set an icon for the current file, for the current project. So in the projects tool window, right click on the exe, simple edit.exe, which is the dprd-proj file. Right click, properties or options. And then from the left hand side tree view, there's application and icons. We want application icons. Let's copy the app.ico top level inside the Git project. Let's select it. How would you like to add to the project? Copy the icon into the projects directory, changing the name to simpleedit.ico. Nope. Copy the icon into the projects directory, it's already there. Leave the icon in the current directory. Okay. UWP, we're not using UWP. So this should be enough, hopefully. Let's run the application. And it looks the way we expected, which is has icon in the window main panel inside the taskbar, has an icon on the preview, another inside the window title bar, and it's actually transparent in both places. It looks okay, so hopefully the 256 pixel icon is not used. So these are, I know, the 16 pixel version and the 32 or the 48 version pixel. It looks okay. Let's save. Another git commit. Let's see what changed. Version info. Main icon app.ico. Excluded packages. Wow, I'm not sure. This is totally random. We have added the file app.ico. And we're using Windows 32 message box for the help about. Okay, what else do we want to do? Let's see if we can change the icon of the form. It's not needed because the application already has an icon. So it says none, which is okay. Next up, we want to have a body. So most of the space of the form should be taken by a text editor, VCL, graphical user interface control. So for that, we go to the tool window palette and standard, and it should be a multi-line text editor. So T-edit is single line and the memo is multi-line. Okay. And now we go to the object inspector. The memo one has already been selected. So that's main memo, the name of the control. And we want to use the entire available space, which is align AL client. Let's see how things look like. Automatically close on successful compile. Okay. The application is already running, so we need to close it. Yeah, the theming is really strange. The main title bar has the same theme as the body of the text editor. And then there's this strange horizontal gray line. So white, gray line, white. Incredibly strange. File, exit. First of all, we want to remove the text main memo from the memo. How do we do that? Lines. And we delete the lines. Okay. Save, run. And now it looks okay. Another git commit. The git commits should be extremely small. This way they can be reviewed, they can be approved. We just added a new graphical user interface control to the main form, which is of type memo, tmemo, named main memo. Its only important property here is align client, and the fact that it doesn't have caption text lines. It's part of std controls. And there's also a member variable inside main form, which is called main memo, such that you can programmatically access it, the edit form, the edit memo. Add main memo. Let's see the application, how far it works. So you can enter text, you can select everything using Ctrl A, right click, context menu works correctly, cut, paste. Cut and paste. The shortcuts work correctly. Ctrl C, Ctrl V, Ctrl A, Ctrl X. Okay, next up, let's save and load the text editor. Or let's make it remember the text. That would be a great feature. So we want, when we exit the application, to remember the current text. Let's see how we do that. So on application, exit. That's main form, on close, We want to take the text, so that's main memo dot lines, and store it on disk. Let's store it in the temporary directory of the current user. Let's see how we do that. In here. Okay, so searching on Google says that in order to get the temporary directory, there's the get temp path method of tpath. Class function, so it's a static, it's not a member, you don't need an instance of tpath. So let's do that. Let's see how it works. tpath.getTempPath. Let's see if it can autofix the issue. So it says that we should use the system.io utils. How do we build the project? Build all projects. Okay. So there's not undeclared identifier tpath. And now the error is gone. So I'm not sure why it didn't offer to help, because it's an integrated development environment. This is a first class library. It's part of Delphi. So totally unexpected that I didn't get any help in adding system.io utils to the uses clause. Okay, so we have where to save, we have what to save. Let's see how to save to plain text files, preferably UTF-8 ones. I have searched Delphi how to save to plain text file UTF-8, and the options, I'm not sure if they will save to UTF-8 file with a BOM or not, with a byte order mark. So it says that the default, or the built-in type tstrings, which is a list of strings, has a method save to file and a second parameter to specify the encoding, UTF-8 in our case. And then probably tstrings is implemented by main memo lines. Let's see. Property lines, it's tstrings. So we can just go save to file. Okay. We want the name of the file. Let's create the name of the file. We want a local variable. File path. Path means full path. The type is string. And we want a string concatenation or a path concatenation. In C#, there's path.combine. So in Delphi, in Python, you would do it in a similar way. Two strings and looks okay. So let's go tpath. If there's tpath combine, then I'm not sure we actually want a temporary, so a local variable, but let's do it if we start it like this. tpath.combine. We want the directory where the name of the file, this should be hard-coded. temp.back. And we want to save. Okay, let's actually see that this feature works. So when we close the application, instead of the application asking for us to not lose our work and save the file, it's going to automatically save it, and when we reopen the application, if the file exists, it's going to take the body of the file and put it inside the main memo. temp.bak, let's see if it looks correct. For this, we're going to use the viewer inside Total Commander. And we're going to go Options and X. So let's look. I don't see any bomb. That's a very good news. And then everything's just 7-bit, which is valid UTF-8. There's new line, Windows style new lines, which is okay. Okay, let's do a git commit, of course, and then we're going to read. So on form close, we save to the file. Okay, let's do the reverse, which is when the application starts, which means when the form is created. We have selected the main form, object inspector, events. On create. Let's first just show a message box in here to make sure that the event is called when we think it's going to be called. Let's survive with the event, the message box implementation from Delphi. Okay, so this event should be called just once. In order not to if the user has edited the memo, we don't want to overwrite the changes of the user. So it seems to be okay. We want this file path to be computed in the exact same way. We don't want to duplicate this line. So we need to create a class. Let's see if we can create two classes inside the same file. That's the backup file. Okay, we want just one method, which is function. get path, return string. How do we fix this issue? Okay, and we want to return this value. There's a built-in variable named result. Or you could use the name of the current method. So you can go get path equals colon equals and then this value. But I always use result, and in all programming languages, always for me the return value of the current function or method or function or what's the name of the thing is a local variable named result. In Delphi, you don't need to define it because it's predefined for you. In other programming languages, I actually define a local variable named result with the exact same type as the return type of the current function, and the last instruction probably is going to be return a result. You also don't need to call return because the value of result of or the value of the get path is going to be returned automatically. Okay, so how do we do that? Here Delphi forces us to create local variables, so we will need to have static functions. So Delphi doesn't really like object-oriented programming. It forces you to not write object-oriented programming, like in this case. So let's see if we can go. How do we create this thing? What does create do? The object create is a constructor. Okay. And then we can chain the call to the method of the object that's just being created by the constructor. Hopefully that works. We can put a breakpoint in here and check. So on form create, we want the same thing. We want access to the full path of the file, of the backup file. And then we want to operate with main memo lines. So it's probably main memo.lines. So lines is a t string, and probably if it has a save to file method, then it also has a load from file. You can resize the auto completions window. I'm not sure what it says in here. Tab, enter, up, down, space. Okay, so file, something with file. Load from file, and I'm going to provide the encoding. So this is the name of the path of the file. And we want the encoding UTF-8. Okay, so that's about it. Let's put breakpoints everywhere and here. Start with the debugger, so the other button. Run. That doesn't say anything about debugging, so F9. Okay, we're on form create. It's going to go into get path. What's the shortcuts? Step over F8. Okay. And the result is visible inside the integrated development environment, Delphi 12.1 Community Edition, the debug layout because the debugger is running right now. There's the local variables tool window. And in here we have the variable result. And it's what we wanted, the local temporary directory of the current user, and then file name temp.bak and the correct path separator, so backslash for Windows. And F8. And just continue. Run until return. That guy. Then step out. Where is step out? I couldn't find step out or a way to not have the debugger pause. Okay. Let's see that the file is empty. And it is empty. X. And now it has the byte order mark of UTF-8. I don't know how to remove this thing, so we'll just survive with it. So the file will always start with this EF, BF, BBF, and then the content we wanted, which is UTF-8 encoded, the value that's inside the main memo. Okay, so we just close, we just exit the application. So it's what we wanted, boom, and then just 7-bit encoded. Okay, now when we start the application, it should resume from where we closed the application, which is what we wanted. Next up would be to add a main toolbar, add some of these actions, cut, copy, paste, delete, undo on a new main menu item named edit with the default shortcuts and the default accelerators. But we're going to stop right here. This was how to install the latest version of Delphi, Embarcadero Delphi Community Edition. This is a free application, but it's not the latest version of Embarcadero Delphi. The latest version of Embarcadero Delphi is version 13, and this is version 12.1. But an extremely capable application. It did what Delphi did 20 years ago. I couldn't see any bugs. All of the features were there. There's a text editor, there's a debugger, It runs without saving if you really want. There's a huge palette of controls to choose from. Standard controls, additional, Win32. It creates 32-bit Windows applications by default. You can probably add ActiveX controls if you want. I remember how that was being done. So you need to add in here, inside the palette, an ActiveX control. Add new category, reset palette. Yeah, I'm not sure what. So you would add ActiveX controls to your application because in 99% of cases, you actually wanted to display a web page, so you were using the Internet Explorer ActiveX, but there's also the opportunity of using the T-Web browser control. It's the same thing, shell doc view. TCL Internet Explorer. So it's still using the Internet Explorer ActiveX 32-bit control. The other possibility that you would probably wanted is a PDF viewer if you had Adobe Acrobat viewer installed on your computer. And maybe you had some ActiveX custom controls of yours. Okay, so the integrated development environment could do anything that I wanted. The templates are here. I could have selected additional features such as more than Windows. I could have selected to create, I don't know, Linux applications. I could have used the new graphical user interface controls. The ones which are not VCL and are cross-platform. Everything seems to work correctly. The IDE, Integrated Development Environment, the shell, the default feeling of the application remains unchanged for the last 20 years. From the first days of the RAD Studio, the layout is the same. The idea of layouts, how the main toolbar looks like, how the title bar looks like, etc. The fact that code design and history tabs exist in editors, the fact that there's no line wrapping yet in text editors. So a very capable application for creating applications, and that's also gratis. Thank you.